I would like to call the meeting to order, please. Good morning, everyone, and pursuant to a motion brought about by Mr. Pierre Nantel, we are now going to have 2 hours with the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, who are going to talk to us about their vision and their hopes and their plans for the CBC. Good morning and welcome, Mr. Lacroix, Michel Lalande, and Ms. Conway. The usual way of presenting, although this is slightly different, is that we're going to have 10 minutes for presentation, and after that there will be a whole interactive question and answer period. In this instance, we will suspend, after Mr. Lacroix has shown a small video that he's presenting as part of his presentation, in order for us to do some special programming that we're going to be seeing, and then we will come back again and finish the presentation, just so that everyone who is paying attention is very clear that that is what we're going to be doing. So we will begin. Michel Lacroix.
Merci, Madame la Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the invitation to meet with you this morning to talk about the government's reinvestment in public broadcasting. Heather, Louis, and myself have met with most of you before, and I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Word about the devices in front of you. They are virtual reality headsets. We've brought them here because they are an important part of a series of town halls that we've just launched in 4 communities to discuss the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women. I wanted you to be able to see for yourself what this technology means to the way we tell stories. I'll talk more about that in a moment. The past few months have provided some remarkable examples of what public broadcasting can do. In August, we helped Canadians share a truly Canadian moment, the final concert of the Tragically Hip in Kingston, Ontario. Almost 12 million Canadians gathered together in backyards, town squares, bars, parks, and in public places in all more than 190 community viewing parties here and all around the world. One Canadian actually told us that they listened to the concert on their phone while sitting in their car in Hawaii. Bringing Canadians together, the way we did that night is exactly what the public broadcaster should do. There
was also the Olympics and Paralympics in Rio. Who will forget the wave of emotions we all felt watching 16-year-old Penny Oleksiak, everyone calls her Penny, win bronze, then silver, then bronze again, and then gold. This 16-year-old swimmer won more medals than any other Canadian athlete at a Summer Olympics in history. How can one forget that friendly rivalry between Andre de Grasse and Usain Bolt? Or the resilience of wrestler Eric Habib, winning gold just months after having missed the World Championships. 32 million people joined us in that celebration. More than 91% of the Canadian population and 10.2 million Canadians tuned into our more than 700 hours of Paralympic coverage. Rio 2016 was the most watched Summer Olympic Games in Canadian history. We had more than 229 million total page views and nearly 37 million video views on our websites and Olympic apps. They also found a new way to experience the Games. For the first time, virtual reality allowed Canadians to immerse themselves in the moment.
But we believe it can be so much more. Many of you know about the leadership role that CBC Radio-Canada has taken on the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women. CBC Radio is the current is actually hosting a series of town halls on this subject and to help people better understand this issue. When they walk into the town hall, they first experience this story in virtual reality. It puts them on the side of Highway 16, the infamous Highway of Tears in northern British Columbia, the place where a number of Indigenous women have been murdered or gone missing. This virtual reality documentary, a first for CBC, can be downloaded from our website. The reaction to this presentation has been nothing short of incredible. In Prince George earlier this month, 200 people came out to experience it. Their town hall was then broadcast on The Current. Here's a bit of what they thought about it.
It's a new way to present the material. And, you know, I'm from Smithers, and to sit in there and to look at my hometown and to swivel around in the chair, and it makes it real. And you're there, you're in her living room, you're on the highway. It's a highway that I've walked before, and I think it's a great use of this virtual reality technology.
We are cleansing the highway of tears as we walk, as we walk. We are cleansing the highway of tears as we walk.
I was expecting something, but I didn't realize how real. I think it gets you in touch faster than words can.
The fact that, you know, you could look around. I could turn my head and see more of the view, and I could turn my head and see more of Mona's mom's house. It made it just so alive, so alive.
It actually brings you to that place. It brings you look into Matilda's eyes when she's holding up her daughter's picture, and you see the pain, you see the memory of her daughter and how it haunts her.
I think it's an incredible way to put a human voice, but also to actually see something through someone else's eyes.
To see so many non-Indigenous people partaking in this conversation, I think it's one of the key components to make this problem something of our past.
It's something that we're going to move forward with as a community, and I think that this virtual reality video of the Highway of Tears is going to take it to a whole new level. It's really exciting.
Well, hey. Yahweh, Yahweh, well, hey, Yahweh, Yahweh.
Now, Madam Chairman, with your permission, I would like to take a couple of minutes to let you experience it for yourself. Some of our staff are here to help you get it up. It's only 4 minutes long.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lacroix. We will suspend, but I want to ask you not to keep your mics open. Keep your mics closed, please. And in front of you, there is a transcript in French, because the virtual reality is in English only.
Yes.
And so we will suspend, and everyone can begin to start connecting with their virtual reality. I will ask you to sit. Some people feel quite fragile when they're watching things, especially when you're above a certain level. You think you're going to fall on your face, and the chances are you just might. So please sit while you're doing this.
We have some people, Madam Chair, that will help you and help the members
Thank you.
with the equipment.
for the thank you, and now please continue, Mr. Lacroix.
Thank you. So we believe this is what a public broadcaster should be doing. Use whatever tools we can, together with great journalism and spectacular storytelling, to deepen Canadians' understanding, to help engage them in a conversation about important issues. C'est en quoi consiste.
That's what our 2020 strategy has been about. Our transformation to become more digital, more local, and more Canadian has been challenging at times, but the disruption part is mainly over, and today our work is showing results. We see it in the way Canadians can now engage with us and each other on mobile devices, social networks, on television and radio. We continue transforming our regional stations across the country to make them more open, multi-platform environments. Halifax, Matane, Moncton, and Sudbury are the most recent ones. We are providing more local content more often and reaching more Canadians on every device they use. Over 16 million Canadians now use our digital platforms each month. That's 3 million more in the last year alone. As you know, our goal is to reach 18 million people by the year 2020. This is helping us build closer connections with Canadians. And we're not the only ones in the midst of a transformation. Last month, we hosted PBI 2016 in Montreal, a gathering of 60 public broadcasters from 52 countries around the world. What is clear is that we are all facing the same challenges, but that CBC Radio-Canada is further ahead than many and has taken a leadership role in this digital transformation. The government's reinvestment announced in Budget 2016 is helping us to do this. We are very grateful for that support. It is the first new investment in public broadcasting in over a decade. It represents an important vote of confidence in CBC Radio-Canada, in the value of our programs and our vision for the future. When the government announced its reinvestment, it asked us to develop an accountability plan. We will be sharing that plan with Canadians soon. But in the meantime, let me tell you what we have been doing until now. We've been promised $75 million this year, rising to $150 million in the coming years. Here is what we're already doing with that investment.
8th anniversary. Programs like Becoming Canadian, a digital-first project celebrating the people who chose Canada as their new home. Aussi, La Grande Traversée.
La Grande Traversée, 10 people recreating
in a sailing replica. This summer, we created a new national radio show, Out in the Open, with Pia Chattopadhyay. We started filming a 6-part television drama, Alias Grace, based on the book by Margaret Atwood in partnership with Netflix, a first for us. We were able to protect funding for the 1-hour Indigenous radio program, Unreserved, with Rosanna Deerchild. We created a new 1-hour Canadian youth soccer drama, 21 Thunder, which will be airing next summer. We started work on a new radio station in London, Ontario, previously suspended because of budget cuts. Nous avons créé du contenu numérique additionnel pour Ici.
We created additional digital content for Ici Tout TV and 7 additional programs for Vero TV, the new web TV chain on Ici Tout TV Extra. We launched a new project called Next Generation, a space to experiment with new ways of enriching and sharing news and current affairs content to be created and managed by millennials talking to millennials. We created 5 additional one-hour episodes of the popular maritime television talk show Méchante Soirée, produced in Moncton. And we've added 15 hours of new weekday evening content on Ici Radio-Canada Première, replacing reruns.
To Canadians on our progress on this and on all of our goals through our corporate plan and annual reports, and we're very proud of what we've been able to do to support Canadian culture. We believe a strong public broadcaster is at the heart of a strong cultural ecosystem. We look forward to showing Canadians what we can do with a reinvestment in public broadcasting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so we begin, Monsieur, I just wanted to introduce Monsieur Nantel, whose motion has allowed us to do this 2-hour session. I wanted to tell you that we start now with a 7-minute question and answer, and that includes the answers. Both questions and answers are included in the 7 minutes. So we begin with Mr. Breton.
Oui. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Lacroix, and to the 2 other witnesses for being here this morning. Well, there are many topics at issue here, many important ones as well. You have shared some of those issues in your presentation. The government is very proud that it reinvested in CBC Radio-Canada, and we strongly believe in that investment. You said it yourself. You talked about investments of $75 million this year and $150 for the next 4 years. So my question has to do with local content. How will that money be invested in local content for our communities throughout Canada? This is a very important aspect of our study, and it's a pleasure to have you here and to hear you on that matter as well. How are you going to measure if we increase local content? How will you measure that in the short and medium terms? Mr. Breton, in our 2020 strategy, we had several priorities, and one was to add more local content. We understand that this is what Canadians are asking us to do. They have repeatedly told us that they want to better understand their communities, and they want to connect their communities with issues affecting the provinces, the country, and the rest of the world. So, in listening to Canadians, we wanted to make sure that we could measure how these new regional stations reflect what people are asking for. And I will ask my colleague to explain how the money is spent by Radio-Canada and CBC in the regions. And then I'll ask Heather to answer the question as well, so you can better understand how we are establishing those priorities. Thank you, Hubert. So it's a 3-part plan. The first plan is to add more digital platforms, especially as regards local news. In the course of our consultations, which we conduct regularly, Canadians have told us they care about local news content 7 days a week. And they want their news more often than just morning, noon, and night. So this is what we have included in our Strategy 2020. So part of the money will go towards more digital news platforms. The second thing Canadians told us in the course of our consultations is that they want to make sure that CBC Radio-Canada can talk about things that lie outside of people's immediate communities. So they want regional news on various platforms because Canadians have many interests. And the third part of the plan is, as far as national initiatives are concerned, is that stations and content reflects what is happening across all regions, and we want to ensure that regional issues are broadcast in all of our programming on television, on radio, and digital platforms.
In the regions.
Roughly the same level of priorities as Louis. So the 2020 plan did call for a digital-first approach in local. We continue to invest in that. We continue to invest in providing people with 18 hours a day of constantly updated information locally. Like Louis, we are also looking at the role that CBC plays in our communities as a catalyst for having the conversations that people want to have in their community. So initiatives like Matt Galloway doing a series on carding in Toronto, issues like missing and murdered, talking about issues of importance to specific communities, and having CBC act as either the catalyst for creating a town hall or having the conversation, inviting people in to do a panel, those kinds of initiatives. We'll also be looking to increase our investment in non-news programming over the coming years. Again, because people do want to see, as Louis said, their communities reflected in what's happening in their culture scene, what's happening in the art scene, what's happening in other parts of their community. You will also know that we in particular had a program where we were planning to extend CBC radio stations into communities that did not have them and had expressed an interest in them. The first one of those that we announced was London, Ontario, and we are proceeding with that. We have selected a space, which is a public library space that we'll be sharing, again, in order to ensure that we're a place where the community can gather, and we'll hope to do more of that.
Merci.
Thank you. Clearly, we will be talking about money during this meeting. And one issue keeps on coming up. Ad revenue has fallen by nearly half over the last 2 or 3 years. It went from about $500 million to $200 million. And this is mostly due to the internet. And, well, perhaps you can confirm this. How is the CBC Radio-Canada going to counter this fall in advertising revenues? And we're dealing with significant amounts of money. Well, clearly you are well informed of the issues affecting the public broadcaster. Yes, advertising revenue has fallen. And this is the case with all other conventional TV stations. And this advertising revenue is migrating towards digital platforms. Our business models are feeling the impact of that. Now, in light of this fact, we have reinvented CBC Radio-Canada in order that the priorities of the broadcasters migrate over to digital platforms, to our website, including radio and television. So we are reinventing ourselves around these priorities, and this is allowing us to reduce our costs, to become more effective, and to find, through our digital platforms, other ways of monetizing our content. The main objective every time we take a measure is to provide services to Canadians based on their needs. So we are following our audiences. We are following the issues they are interested in through our consultations. So our objective is to provide our services as in the best way possible to Canadians listening to us.
Now we go to Mr. Van Loon and Mr. Maguire who will be sharing their time.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. There are some critics of the CBC who say that it fails to be and should become more of a genuine public broadcaster. And when they say this, they mean that it should focus more on things like Canadian art, music and performances by Canadian performers, Canadian films and theatre, and programs of a documentary nature that would focus on things like Canadian geography, Canadian history. Their suggestion is that the CBC should less try to emulate mainstream broadcasters, that news is not a comfortable fit for a publicly subsidized broadcaster, and that sitcoms and dramas that seek to compete with private sector broadcasters is not really a genuine fit for a public broadcaster. What is your response to those critics?
I'll have Heather tell you about how she has, over the time that she's been with us, reinvented the arts piece in what you described and how that fits in the overall mandate of CBC.
Thanks, Hubert. I think we have invested in arts programming. We have created a number of digital arts properties. We have also invested in documentary programming with a program called First Hand. We continue to support programs like The Nature of Things, which is documentary programming that often focuses on wilderness and the wonder of Canada's geography and history. I do believe that public broadcasters have a different mandate than other broadcasters. I would also argue, however, that comedy is a deeply cultural product. There is a Canadian sense of humor, and Canadians like to see it reflected on the CBC. There are very few places where political satire, where shows like Kim's Convenience, which is a new we hope, hit for us. It's doing very well so far. Baroness von Sketch, an all-female comedy troupe. Comedies, dramas are places where Canadians can see what Canadian creators have to offer. And if not the public broadcaster, there really isn't a lot of space on the private sector broadcasters' schedules in prime time for any of that.
Another set of critics, some of whom we have had here, have said that it is inappropriate for a public broadcaster whose public subsidy is premised on the notion of limited bandwidth, and you have a space there, using that public subsidy to compete on the web. And these critics were here specifically referring to news broadcasting, where you're both collecting advertising, a public subsidy, and competing with other news outlets that say they're having real trouble surviving and making that transition. What's your response to those critics who we've heard many of from here, from all ends of the marketplace, I might say?
So I think that we have to remember what the mandate is. The mandate is to provide Canadians with a wide range of programming that informs, enlightens, and entertains. And in 2016, Canadians expect us to deliver on that mandate on whichever device they're watching, at whatever time they're watching, in whatever environment they're living. We don't think that we compete. We actually seek to service Canadians with the dollars that we receive from government in this mixed model that we have, mixed model of funding, which right now has us going after some commercial revenues, including advertising revenues, to make all of these services available to Canadians. So there's nothing in the Act or there's nothing in our mandate that prevents us, on the contrary, from delivering these services to Canadians in the most effective way.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for your presentation. Just a quick question in regards to a question I asked, I think, the last time I was here. It was about the getting a breakdown in writing from you of the CBC employees and that are directly involved in the day-to-day basis that create, write, produce, and edit some of the local news. But I was informed that CBC wouldn't supply that information to the committee. But as we're trying to map out the gaps with local news currently found in Canada, it makes it very difficult to do that if we don't know where the employee footprint is of CBC, and so I just wondered if you'd assist our committee and task your organization to provide that breakdown on how many CBC employees are directly involved in local news, broken down by media platform and by profits?
We don't think that way, and I'll ask Louis and Heather to chime in a sec. But the way that we look at, and we'd be happy to tell you how many employees we have in each of the places in the business of CBC Radio-Canada. That's an easy one. However, we don't segregate these platforms in that way. There is no such thing in 2016 as one of our journalists only being assigned to a particular platform or a particular kind of news. Everybody participates in the delivery of the information, and as you've seen us do now, we refresh our pages 8 to 12 times an hour, the web pages. We try to push out information that is relevant to Canadians on a regular basis as that information happens. But this concept that we have these broken silos into CBC Radio-Canada is a thing of the past. That is not the way we do our business every day. It's not the way we deliver the news to Canadians, and that's not the approach that we take in our business. Heather, and would you want to add?
I think that's a fair statement. I do appreciate that every community, and we do hear from them, wants more. Everybody wants more local news. Everybody wants more coverage of their issues in their community. We have to make choices with the resources that we have. I do think in particular for Eastern Ontario, if that's the area of concern that you're particularly interested in, I think as we bring London on board as a radio and a digital station, that will free up some resources to focus more on Eastern Ontario, on the Kingston, Peterborough area. But it's always going to be a set of choices, and of course events of the day drive how you allocate those resources. Is there something newsworthy happening here? Is there something more newsworthy happening over here? So it's often just a series of choices that you're making that aren't something that we particularly focus on. It's something that our editorial teams and assignment teams focus on.
Thank you, Mr. Maguire. I go to Mr. Nantel for the New Democrats.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all three of you for coming. You know I'm a great fan of Radio-Canada, and I'm so pleased that the government finally decided to give you a little bit of breathing room and allow you to undertake your mandate. When I came in earlier, I congratulated Ms. Conway for her initiative on the secret path that was broadcast Sunday night. And you also did the same thing for the tragedy in Kingston. So really, this is a way of focusing in on events that are significant in Canadian culture. And it was fantastic to see what you're doing this morning with new technology and virtual reality. That was really very interesting, and it's a wise use of the Radio-Canada CBC's brand. You're really the one who is bringing the news and new technology into communities so that we have a better understanding of the Canadian reality. Now, when you talk brand, you're also talking about credibility, and I heard Bernard Derome on Radio-Canada, and really he's been talking about what a proud tradition Radio-Canada has. I think you have that credibility. My staff was reminding me that one of the most credible sources in Paris is considered to be Radio-Canada CBC because of the seriousness of the work they undertake. So I think that what you're doing is very inspiring. You talked to us about your consultations with the Canadian public, and I think that's absolutely exemplary. And I'm hoping, really, that this will be consistent with the kinds of consultations that we hope to do. I think that your work is very collegial, and I hope that you will actually have an opportunity to participate in the consultations that the government will be undertaking. Now, you spoke about 2020. Now, there's a lot that has changed. This is new funding, the first funding since 2013, 2014. When it comes to real estate, have there been any changes? Could you bring us up to date on your headquarters, for example, in Toronto? Well, every property that we have, Mr. Nantel, throughout Canada is constantly being reassessed. We try to be as efficient as possible, and when we have too large a space, we look at that. We want to be able to use many different platforms. And so in Toronto, we took a look at what we could do with the building. We also looked at our funding, and we saw that there was no advantage to trying to sell that real estate. We're always trying to re-examine our strategy. We always look for people who can use our space in order to reduce costs per square foot in our building in Toronto. Now, in terms of Montreal, many scenarios have been raised. I have two questions. I believe Mr. Lalonde could probably answer this. There was the idea to be involved in the theatre district. I'd like you to give us an update on that and also on your offices in Montreal. Louis could probably speak to this. However, what we would like to do is deliver in more than one ways. There were two consortiums that were consulted. We announced that we are moving to Papineau and René Lévesque. It's about 800 meters east. And we also announced that we want to sell the rest of that property in order to help with the cost of this project. So we expect an end to the call for proposals by the end of the year. And really, there's no reason to believe that we wouldn't be able to wrap up this file that has been ongoing for about 15 years. Louis, would you have something to add? Well, what I could add is that there are two proposals under consideration right now. And they're very interesting because they respond really to meet the expectations that we had to be a place where creativity is stimulated in the future. And we really want to be involved in the living arts. We want to make this an important part of our initiative. You referred to the initiative of my colleague with respect to the Tragically Hip. That was a very inspiring event, and we saw how attached Canadians are to their icons. So what we want to do is make sure that we can do that to the greatest extent possible and be able to really produce these kinds of shows. We also want to be able to undertake new projects, and we hope that these will meet those expectations. Now, you said you're looking for people to lease your property. I know that the real estate market is very different in Montreal and Toronto and elsewhere. Do you think that whoever acquires that property may look for people involved in communications and telecommunications? I know that investments have been made. I know investments were made 20 years ago. And we didn't know how long that centre would last. Do you think there's any way you'll be able to recover some of those investments? Well, as Hubert was saying, there are two processes right now. We need to develop our new offices, and we also need to wrap up the property that we currently have. Now, when that transaction has taken place, we'll see what the plans of the company that acquires that tower will be. But we can't intervene, really, in the plans of the developer. At the time, there were going to be about 1,500 losses of jobs in 2014. Well, that was the number of people who were affected by our 2020 plan. There were cuts. We had to make choices. in the English CBC, and that has pretty much finished. Now we're looking at how we can improve what we have in the way of staff, technology, information, and knowledge in order to be able to deliver on the goals that we set. Now, in terms of Radio-Canada, there were also choices that were made. We had to be able to meet our budget plans. We had to be able to balance our budget. We've pretty much finished with that, and all those departments that were involved, that were going to be involved, have been identified. Louis?
Nantel, we have gone a little over time there. Now for the Liberals again, Mr. Van Gaal.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup pour votre belle présentation.
Thank you very much for your very interesting remarks.
Exciting time. Congratulations for your fine work on the Olympics and the tragically hip Secret Path shows is very impressive, and I'm proud to be a supporter of the $675 million, I believe, of new money that is going to be going to CBC Radio-Canada in the next 5 years. But I have one problem with the radio en français. On a appris cet été.
We learned this summer that the same year we increased our subsidies by 75%. We learned that Radio-Canada was cancelling all regional midday shows in Western Canada. So that includes my riding. So in Saint-Boniface, there was a program that had been broadcast for years and years and years. Now they're broadcasting out of Montreal. Furthermore, in Manitoba, Radio de Retour à la Maison was also cut by 1 hour. And in terms of television, there was about 90 minutes of local programming, and now it's 60. So when you're talking about French programming in Manitoba, how can you have better, more local information for our communities? Well, yes, in fact, there were some significant changes in the midday programming, and it was for one simple reason. It's because the viewing had decreased significantly. Now, there were no job cuts at the time, but the plan was developed along with the regional stations, and the idea was to figure out the best way to get better value with our information in those areas where it was required. For example, there were morning programs. So we strengthened the morning programming, and our digital presence as well was improved significantly. Now, in terms of Winnipeg, what happened was quite remarkable. Earlier, I was talking about consultations. Well, it was in Winnipeg during the consultations a few years ago where Franco-Manitobans said that they wanted a local presence on digital platforms. And so that's what we developed. Now, of course, that has an impact on other parts of our programming. But as that digital programming improved, well, midday listening decreased. So that's the story behind that development. And as I said earlier, we want to improve and increase Radio-Canada's presence and footprint so that we better reflect the interests of the communities, of all communities out west. And we have a cultural program, a very good one in Winnipeg. So these are initiatives that will make sure that we are present on all our platforms in Western Canada. So what you're saying then is that there was some sort of polling that was undertaken, a survey, and you're saying that the people who were listening at midday had stopped listening. Yes, there was quite a decrease. Well, how did you undertake that survey? Well, there was an increase in the use of digital platforms over the course of during the middle of the day, really. And so media consumption evolves, and you can see that, and you can see that where there's a decrease, there's an increase somewhere else. So what we try and do is adjust accordingly so that we can provide the best service possible. Could you comment then on the decrease in peak viewing for local television? Because the programming during those peak hours was reduced by 30 minutes. Well, it was the same thing that happened. People said they wanted more resources for better value than to sort of spread out all these resources. And because when you do that, you have a bit of this, a bit of that everywhere. What people wanted to make sure was that we had the best value and that the emphasis would be put on a really good half hour of news, and that half hour would best reflect the interests of all those communities. And in this case, we're talking about Winnipeg. Then in Winnipeg, speaking of Winnipeg, I would say that Franco-Manitobans are really spread across the province, and many don't have access to reliable cell coverage, for example, to listen to news over the internet. So if you're emphasizing digital content, then how can you make sure that these communities are still well served? So we're talking about minority Franco-Manitoban communities. Well, every time we have an opportunity to spread the word, we do it. And I'm very aware of what's happening. I travel. I know that there are communities that have not consistently reliable digital service. We try and remind this to decision makers that this is the case, but the infrastructure really doesn't depend on Radio-Canada. So we need the digital infrastructure, but we're not responsible for that digital infrastructure ourselves. And we try and take opportunities to make this known. That's what we did before the CRTC several years ago. We try and make the CRTC aware of the fact that when there's digital development, then you also have to consider access to those services.
Okay.
Just to come back then to your reduction in hours.
Ended your 7 minutes.
Oh, you did? Okay, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
Should have said it. Okay, thank you.
And now we're going to go to a second round, and this is a 5-minute round, and we will begin with Mr. Waugh.
Thank you. I don't have to tell you that you're the envy of the broadcasting industry. The private broadcasters in this country do more with less, and they're looking upon the model of the CBC with envy because you got $675 million. You didn't have a business plan, and yet you had $675 million given to you, and then you had to scurry and get your business plan together. So I take your business plan will absorb most of the $675 million to digital then? I take it that's where you're going. I see Robin Urbach has been hired from the National Post, and you're hiring other high-profile people to work on your digital plan then. So when the government gave you the $675 million, is that when you started the game plan for 5 years?
You know that I will not agree with the comment that you just made, saying, sir, that we had no business plan. Wow. The 2020 plan had been there for a long time.
But not with money.
The 2020 plan, yes, because what we did with this is we actually said in our 2020 plan that our objective for the public broadcaster and the connections that we were making with Canadians as we saw them give us feedback about what they wanted from the public broadcaster was more local, more digital, and more Canadian content. And when the dollars came to support us and to give us the breathing room that we no longer had as we were trying to transform this very important, this leading institution, the most important leading institution in the cultural sector in this country, the locomotive for so many more people who actually work in our industry, well, we were able to say, thank you, we're going to do more Canadian content, we are going to actually reinvest where Canadians asked us to reinvest because we were able to cut, and we had to cut because of the environment in which we are. And we actually went full speed ahead in the digital space because that's where Canadians are, and that's where they expect us to be.
But when you developed the 2020, you didn't know you were going to get any more money because you were developing that in 2014, right?
Absolutely.
So you didn't have a number out of the air.
No, but we actually knew, sir, exactly what we had to cut. We knew exactly what we wanted to do should dollars be involved. We actually met in the context of the campaign that led to the 2015 elections. We met with all the parties. We explained what we wanted to do. We sat down with the Liberal Party. We sat down with the NDP. Actually, the only government that didn't want to sit down with us was the Conservative Party to listen to what we wanted the public broadcaster to be. Based on that, I can assure you we knew exactly if a reinvestment was going to come, what we wanted to do with the dollars.
Okay, so the reinvestment then of $675 million over 5 years, is that enough? Or is it too much, or what is it?
This reinvestment allows us, let's remember, it's $75 million this year and $150 million for the next year, allows us to reset the priorities, not the reset, but to give us some breathing room and deliver the 2020 plan or some of the initiatives that we have in the 2020 plan. It allows us to react to the cuts that we had to make, and it's a reinvestment in the right direction.
I would argue the private guys have been cutting as much as you, if not more.
I don't think that we have the same objective in hand. The mandate that we have is to actually deliver to Canadians Canadian content in prime time, which the privates don't have as an objective, because they have a different business model, and that, sir, is okay. We are very proud of the Canadian content that we put in prime time on our programming schedules. We are very proud of the missing and murdered initiatives that we've had. We're very proud of some of the digital environments that we are going to create to be able to speak to our millennials as they are waking up to news, and they are very interested in news. I was very surprised to see that some of the witnesses that were in front of you actually said that millennials are not interested in news. We absolutely don't agree with that statement.
Yeah. So will you reinvest Saturday nights where you've taken Hockey Night in Canada and you lost that, and that's part of your ad revenue loss, is because Hockey Night in Canada probably funded a lot of your news over the year. We always knew that, especially in the playoffs when news was preempted. So are you going to, on Saturday nights, instead of seeing 5 NHL games, 1 on your channel or 2 because you do the early game and then you do the night game, will you put Canadian culture back instead of taking this product from Rogers Television?
In the context of the hockey contract, let us remember a few things. First off, yes, like CTV, like Bell, CBC was surprised by a decision that went to all of hockey to Rogers on a national basis in all playoffs for $5.2 billion for 12 years. That's water under the bridge. What we did, though, is obviously we lost the advertising revenue that came for that.
How much advertising did you lose?
Second, please. We lost the advertising revenue that then actually also reduced the cost accordingly. We didn't make money, and I've said this in front of this committee before. We did not make money with the 6-year contract that ended in 14 or 15, 14, when Rogers actually rebid. So when you say that it funded a whole bunch of things, I would like to remind you of something I've said here before. We did not make money with the hockey contract, but it was an important locomotive in the context of what Canadians wanted to see, and it allowed us to bundle other shows when we went to advertisers to support the programming schedules for Canadian content in prime time. I'll let Heather perhaps talk to you about
what could be, when this agreement with Rogers ends, what could be, what is in the plans, or maybe what could a Saturday night look like?
I would love to have Saturday night for Canadian culture, for Canadian feature films, in fact, would be...
You'll have that opportunity.
I will have the opportunity.
Yeah.
I do, it always rankles me when I hear people say we lost hockey. And when I talk to staff and audiences and Canadians about it, I always say there was no scenario where CBC was going to pay $5 billion to mostly U.S.-based billionaires.
That's right.
That was never going to happen. So
thank you.
To suggest we lost hockey, like we screwed up somehow, is actually not a fair characterization. The cost of professional sports rights is through the roof. It's not a great use of taxpayers' money, and that's why we are out of, by and large, the big, expensive professional sports rights sports.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Conway. That's it, Mr. Waugh. And then we go to Mr. O'Regan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all three of you for appearing in front of the committee. As you know, this is a new government in place. We've made a significant commitment to you as the shareholder, but we also want a significant rethink of all of our cultural institutions and important institutions like the CBC. As the Minister has said before, everything is on the table. And there will be a fundamental reshaping, I think, of cultural institutions in this country in the next coming years. So your appearance here is important and your responses are important. I grew up in Goose Bay, Labrador, and I'm happy to say that my first employer was the CBC at the age of 10, working for a morning show called Anybody Home. I don't know, it's Saturday mornings, and I was bemused that anybody would be listening to radio instead of watching Saturday morning cartoons. But it does bring home the point, and it's relevant even today, that there are a lot of people in small, rural, and northern parts of this country that do rely upon radio. So to say that people are in the digital space is true, but it is not for everybody. And it is not for a significant and very important part of our population, those who are rural. And while I understand that the infrastructure is not your responsibility, the mandate of making sure that those people are serviced in local news is, I think, a part of your mandate.
I would agree.
So to my point, everything that we have heard in the past number of weeks, and I only have a few minutes, so let me summarize and say that local news is in crisis. And local news in areas that aren't sexy or are a little more remote are starving for local information. And I keep coming back to a phrase that I've heard repeated by I think each of you, and I think will be our northern star in the next year or two, if not the public broadcaster. If not the public broadcaster, who? And I think that that's a very, very important point, because it does translate to the Tragically Hip, which was a fantastic broadcast and a great concert, but it also translates to the not so sexy but incredibly, incredibly important work of northern and rural communities in this country.
I mean, I want to make it very clear. It is not a burden to the CBC or Radio-Canada to be in local communities, to be providing local services, to be enhancing local services, to be expanding our footprint where we can. The issue has been one of resources. The challenge for all media companies, I think, is to manage this balance between the traditional television and radio infrastructure, which is expensive, which has heavy infrastructure requirements, and to meet Canadians where they are in increasing numbers around digital platforms. And what you're hearing and what you have been hearing from people in the sector is we are challenged to pay for an entirely digital service and movement while continuing to invest in the traditional and legacy media infrastructure that we have. It's not that
To
we
interject,
want...
Ms. Conway, the problem is that we've heard from a number of fledgling news providers, one of which called you an Uber predator. And what he meant by that was that there's a very, very small amount of online advertising that's available for these fledgling news sources. And that, and then coupled with, you know, your new foray into opinion, I mean, those aren't really things that people are starving for nationally. We're getting lots of opinion pieces, yet we have a finite amount of dollars that are going to them. And if I could just bring up the BBC's example, because it's important, I only have a few moments, but the BBC is pouring £8 million into but servicing 150 new local journalists that will be used at local newspapers and local radio stations to feed into them, because they understand that there is a democracy gap, that there aren't enough reporters on the field in this new online universe that we live in that are covering property issues and water and sewer. And as we heard from even lately, the creator of The Wire, former journalist himself, The Wire on HBO, he said, you know, the next few years could be a politician's dream. And I think what he meant by that were corrupt politicians who on the ground could take advantage of less and less scrutiny on local issues. So the BBC, first of all, of course, doesn't take any advertising online, but that's part of a much broader Band-Aid. But secondly, is using new money in order to get local presence feed into its structure. And I think that's at least a creative way of going about this. And I'm wondering if there's anything you could say to that. Is the CBC planning on doing anything on that level that may be able to help us bridge that democracy gap at a local level?
There's an enormous number of things that you've talked about in that in your statement. Yep. So I'm going to try and tackle a few of them. The BBC doesn't take online advertising because the BBC doesn't take advertising. The BBC also is funded at 9 times our level. So what the BBC can undertake versus what we can undertake, even with an injection, are very, very different magnitudes of the CBC has always been an opinion. I would argue Cross Country Checkup is an opinion show. I would argue all our point of view documentary is opinion. We used to have a show called Commentary where people read opinion over the radio. So opinion is not new for the CBC. I think it's important, again, for the CBC to be the place where people have important conversations, community conversations, national conversations. It's not something that we pursue, as you know, Neil MacDonald noted in one of his analysis columns. Indigenous issues, when he writes about them, are guaranteed to drop his numbers in terms of readership. But he doesn't stop writing about it. He's not in the click business. He's in the public broadcasting business. And so our focus on issues that matter and the role of the public broadcaster is deeply, deeply important to us. And where we can be in those communities, we will be. We're absolutely committed to it. We don't want to lessen our participation in any local news initiative. We're not trying to compete with the private sector. That's not our motive. Our motive is always, how do we best service Canadians where they are? What are they asking us to do? What do they want from us? And it's the Canadian response to our content that drives our agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Conway. Thank you very much. And I go to Mr. Maguire and Mr. Wall, who are sharing their time again.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, as well. I just wanted to follow up. I kind of ran out of time there, Mr. Maguire, last time, and so I'm just. Our study is about local news. It's about how do we get news into rural and remote areas, some of those areas, some of those things. And so I guess I asked the question that I did before for a bit of a breakdown by province of the staffing and that sort of thing, just to get a handle on how that local news is produced and how you emulate that out into those areas. And can you just expand on the means that you would hope to do that with the new funding that's available there as well?
I thought that we had established for you, sir, that the way that we actually deliver the news and the way that the two media lines are actually looking for the pieces of information and the stories, the way that we
make sure that these live on a different platforms, is not broken down per person, per platform. So these numbers are not numbers that are available. What we do, though, is we look for, on a daily basis, ways for the network to benefit from what's happening in a particular region. I'll go back to Fort McMurray. Fort McMurray in the way that our Edmonton station covered Fort McMurray, being supported by Vancouver and Calgary, and the whole of the network, allowing Canadians not only to understand what was going on in that particular part of northern Alberta, but also helping the people of northern Alberta, because we were the only ones actually with vital information for people in Fort McMurray. So this is the way that we actually deliver news. This is the way that we cover events of this kind. It's not about 3 people or 2 people or 9 people. It's about the strength of the public. We have in delivering information to Canadians.
Well, right, you're taking from the newspaper, like I mentioned. Your digital, I'm going to give you some credit because you could see where the industry was going, I think, long before some of the private people. But I've seen $3.6 million spent in the last 7 months by this government to Facebook, and your revenues are down drastically. Can you make any money off of digital when you see the Facebooks, the Googles, and so on in the United States taking money from Canada, and I see your revenues and I don't see the digital making the money?
So I'm happy to see that you recognize that 20 years ago, we were the first ones, about the first ones to go into digital. All the information was available to everybody around us. We saw that. We saw also Canadians, thank you. We saw Canadians actually being interested in this. We saw where the audiences were going. We started the conversations. So we have been in this digital world for a very long time. So this is not new. Are we making money off digital? If any person in this media industry knew or was able to monetize perfectly all of the efforts in trying to do this, and aside from the Googles of the world, and the media giants who are, because Facebook is, and Google is, and YouTube is. They're all media companies, these companies. They are not simply technology companies. So what we're trying to do is make sure we monetize this as we go forward. But do we have the secret of the sauce right now? No, we don't.
So how do you compete against these American giants?
But we don't compete against the American giants. What we do is we have a mandate to deliver to Canadians the best possible Canadian content, to make sure that the lights shine on Canadian artists in prime time, that we are able, through all of our platforms, to tell you what's going on in the world through our journalists who are stationed in really crazy places in the world, and trying to give you a perspective of not only what's going on there, but how that affects Canada and Canadians in our daily lives. And whether it's a conversation about climate change, or whether it's a conversation about what's going on in different places of the country affected by the oil crisis, all of this is what we do. We don't wake up in the morning trying to compete against Google, but what we do.
Well, you do,
is
because
we're
you're taking
interested
your
by
money.
the quality of the Canadian content that has to be, and I think that's where Heather wants to go, the quality of the Canadian content that is created to actually face series like being invested in by the Netflixes of the world. You want to go there?
Where I wanted to go was actually around the challenge that's presented by the global technology companies, and I would argue they are primarily technology companies and not media companies, in the form of Facebook and Google in particular. And these are both companies we partner with to distribute content. The challenge that has occurred for the newspaper industry is that the search function, the search for my local shoemaker and repairer, or whatever it might be, has virtually replaced all the classified advertising in newspapers. So their bread and butter was classified. That was never the bread and butter of broadcasters, really. So newspapers have been hit particularly hard, I think, by the advent of these kinds of companies that are coming in. And as you have rightly pointed out, and I say this as a good partner to them, they take from the market and they do not contribute a lot to the Canadian market.
To them? Do you pay fees to them? You say you partner with Facebook and Gold. Like
fees to them, we have CBC Facebook pages. We participate in Facebook Live. They are one of the largest distributors of content, and Canadians use them in the millions. And so when we want to share our content, Facebook is one of the ways that we do it.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Conway. Thank you, Mr. Waugh. I go to Mr. Sampson.
Oui, bonjour, merci, et puis merci beaucoup.
Good morning. Thank you, and thank you to all of you for coming this morning. This will certainly assist us with our study. We need to report to the House, and our job is to reflect what witnesses have said as well. I have 3 questions for you. First, in terms of the telecommunications sector, there have been some pretty dramatic changes, and I'd like to know what your plan is to compete either directly or indirectly with Netflix and Crave TV. So what's your strategy to compete with them, or at least to be able to be present? Because we know that consumers are moving towards these kinds of media. I'll answer that question, but I'd also like Heather to comment, because in the Anglophone environment, there are shows that we have during prime time, and the shows that we broadcast really are a barometer for CBC. So when you're looking at what CBC is showing with respect to Netflix, those shows are pretty much our barometer. Well, in the Francophone environment, as you know, a few years ago, we launched 2TV. 2TV was launched before Netflix. Now, earlier we were talking about opportunities, risk-taking. CBC, Radio-Canada have to do that on a regular basis, and that's one example of a risk we took. So we really tried to use ways of providing this kind of programming. And Francophones use this. They use this to consume content, television content, but it's also a platform for young creators because they can develop new formats. They can use new formats, especially for drama, for example. So on 2TV has won all kinds of international awards when it comes to new works, because young authors are able to develop new formats. They can do short shows, longer shows, and so 2TV is a very, very important part of our strategy. And I really don't like the word compete, because we're not trying to compete. We're trying to maintain contact with Canadians. We try and offer Canadians products and content that is original, that is Canadian, that is significant, whether it be drama or information. So that's the main issue. Now, of course, there is all kinds of pressure out there. For Francophones, it makes it very difficult because there's a lot of English content, and that's becoming more and more present. So it's our job to make sure that not only are we producing French content, but making sure that it's distributed and that it's seen.
We see this, for example, in the context of this reinvestment, how these dollars go to Canadian content, helping us create content that Canadians want to watch in an environment where, yes, we are bumping into series invested by the HBOs and the Netflixes of the world.
Thanks, Hubert. I don't think you can overstate the seriousness of the competition presented by the Netflixes, the Amazon Primes, the Hulus. There are 400 new hours of English language drama created in the last year. 50% of it will fail. It's a level of investment that is staggering. I think most of you know that the investment that Netflix makes in its series, 2 seasons of House of Cards, $100 million, that's roughly the budget of English language non-news for an entire year. One series. So our ability to compete with that and our need for investment in Canadian content, Canadian creators, is enormous. When we partner with those companies, as we are on Alias Grace, great Canadian writer, Sarah Polley is producing and writing the series, great Canadian creator, great Canadian broadcaster in CBC. It's, about a $30 million investment. That is something that is almost unprecedented for us in terms of the volume of dollars. But if we hope to be able to compete with that kind of content, that's what we're going to have to be able to do. And like Louis, we're going to have to invest more and more in a CBC player. Again, so that people can access that content in the way that they want to, when they want to. It requires a huge investment in digital infrastructure and technology. You want to be able to provide people with the kind of viewing experience that they've now become used to from the Netflixes of the world, to say, if you liked this, you'll probably like that. You need to be able to gather information about how people watch, what they binge, what they like. So it's...
Okay, peut-être poser nos questions parce que...
Thank you. Perhaps I can just ask another question because my time is running out. $675 million, that's a significant investment. So here's what I would like to know. Your action plan, because there's digital content, there's cultural content, rural content, Canadian content, and minorities. I think those are the 5 important ones. So how will you use that money to stimulate that kind of content, Mr. Lalonde? And I would just give you one example. I was the only Acadian Francophone Acadian from Nova Scotia in the elections, and I told Radio-Canada that I would be winning. But they didn't come to my campaign on the election day. They went over to cover the Anglophones in the province. I was disappointed. Twice we had to send a message over the internet because my name was being pronounced as Samson instead of Sanson. I've had interviews. Yes, I know that that comment was passed on, and Michel Cormier apologized. We know that the Sanson family has very deep roots in Acadia, so I would repeat that apology, and now I'll give Louis an opportunity to speak to what that funding will cover in your environment.
We'll have to move on because we're going into a third round.
He could send, if he doesn't answer throughout the session, they can send it in writing.
He may have a chance in the next round.
Okay.
We actually have another round. If we fill out all the parties that want to speak in that round, we may be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 25. We may actually be able to do a 4-minute round. So, starting with Mr. Nantel.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. He really wants a written apology. That's what he wants. Mr. Lacroix, you told us that the Liberal government had asked you for accountability. You said that that was forthcoming. And you've needed a credit line to be able to function. I assume that you will get that, or you have that, because everyone's talking about how much money this is, $675 million, but actually it's gone from $29 to $34 Per year, you were asking for 40. But as far as I know, the $75 million hasn't been released yet. Perhaps it will be soon. But here's what I'd like to know. You said you had many new projects. There was the 150th anniversary. So I imagine you'll be testing new concepts. I mean, we can already see the difference in evening programming. But I'd like to come back to what you were saying, Mr. Lalonde, on any potential cuts to the Francophone service. You said there may be job losses. I'd just like to know what will change because of this new injection of funds. I hope those funds are released soon. Well, everything that had to be announced was announced. Now we have to undertake it all. But on the positive side, there's a lot of new expertise in Radio-Canada CBC. So we have a lot of new expertise, which helps us really move forward in our shift. Just one example. Yes, but I want to know if there are going to be any more cuts in your employees. Well, yes, we will still have to implement some cuts. These were cuts that were announced, but they haven't been implemented yet necessarily. So there's the Auberge de Chien Noir. Well, that show lasted for 13 years, but that will stop in a few weeks. Are we talking many jobs that will be cut? From 20 to 30. So we're not talking about hundreds. All right, then carry on. So there will be new hiring. There's the new initiative where there will be this creative experimentation space. Young people who had precarious employment within Radio-Canada will be able to work within that space. And we often have projects actually that have been worked on elsewhere. These people will be working within Radio-Canada to work on this future sort of news concept. Perhaps Ms. Conway could answer me. Ms. Conway, you spoke about your new initiatives, and in Windsor, that you talked about your digital shift. I'm sorry, you were maybe referring to Kingston. Well, I was in Windsor on a Saturday morning in my car. I listened to the news, and I was surprised to hear national news. Okay, that was fine. And then they moved on to local news, but it was Toronto news. So what's happening on Saturday morning? Is there still an issue with being able to get this news over the radio? People do listen to radio in their cars. Well, we do have a weekend strategy in Ontario. We don't necessarily have the resources that we need yet to be able to broadcast 7 days a week with all this local programming. But we are using people throughout Ontario, for example, in Northern Ontario, Toronto, and Windsor. Right. But in terms of your digital presence, you're right in saying that you were pioneers. But I'd like to know about Kingston. Have you been getting good feedback? Ms. Conway. You mean London? I'm sorry, yes, I'm getting my cities mixed up. Yes, from London.
I mean, it's not up and running yet, but we have met with community leaders in London to talk about what kind of a service that they want. It will have its own radio as well as a digital bureau. We did talk about location so that we could ensure we were in a location that would work for the community.
Okay.
But yeah, it's been universally positive. This is a city that has wanted service for years, has felt underserved by the public broadcaster, and was in fact the next city that was on the list of local service extensions when we developed a plan to invest more in local.
Mm-hmm. Because the investment, excusez-moi, parce que vous vous souvenez, M. Nantel.
You'll recall, Mr. Nantel, that one of our 2015 strategy was to open up the public broadcaster in areas where there was no service or where Canadians were telling us that they were underserved. So in that context, there were new stations that were opened up. There was a new presence in BC, Alberta. and in London with this local services extension plan. I hope I have an opportunity on another round. But with my remaining minutes, could you tell us what you think about these new children's shows and advertising during children's shows? Because I know that CBC Radio-Canada has had shows, for example, animated shows, but there's no more live shows. There's the Migonzi show. Well, there was the Charles Godreau show at the time. Well, it's a good question. Migonzi is the only live-action show. We did it in collaboration and in partnership with Télé-Québec because we firmly believe that we should continue to do this. Well, everyone was talking about it. Everyone does talk about these kinds of shows. Well, we do have plans for young people with our reinvestment. It hasn't happened right away, but we have focused in on what we want to do. And with respect to youth programming, what we'll be doing under this reinvestment is a new youth initiative on TOUT-TV, because TOUT-TV is an accessible platform. So we're going to start with that, with our programming, and then we'll be developing other initiatives, live-action type initiatives.
Nantel, I think that's it. Now, if we really, and we never do, stick to time, we could do another round for 3 minutes. So I'm going to start with Mr. Maguire and Mr. Waugh for 3 minutes.
Okay.
You're splitting it, so I'm going to have to be very sharp on your splitting here.
Okay. Well, thank you. Mr. Poirier, we had one of the media, one person came before our committee and said that, you know, for about $350,000, they could be setting up a news unit or a new facility and for focusing on local news in a region. And that's part of what we're studying, is how to do that. And you've indicated your efforts, and they're good. But for $150 million, I think over those 4 years, each year, there was some consternation, I think, by these local independents that perhaps some of this funding could have helped set up some of those smaller facilities and utilize those funds in a manner that would help small independent groups get going and make them viable. And can you just comment on that? Do you see that there's enough other news sources out there as well?
Sir, the mandate of CBC Radio-Canada is one that is important. It's a wide range of programming. It's about information. It's about enlightenment, and it's about entertainment. That's what we focus on. So when this reinvestment or these dollars were made available to us, that's what we focused on. We listened to what Canadians wanted us to do. We have these conversations going on all the time. We had been under pressure and severe financial pressure for the last year. We had done a whole bunch of cuts, trying to reshape the broadcaster and make sure that we could deliver on the promise of balancing our budgets, which we did through really thick and thin. I'll come back to a comment. I think it was going to Mr. O'Regan. One of the things that we did not do is we never changed our footprint. We kept every single station out there alive because we believe in being deeply rooted in the regions. Because if you are not there, that you can't have the pulse of the region and you can't actually understand what's going on in the country. So that's what we did in this environment. That is our focus, and this is what I understand the dollars to be CBC Radio-Canada, or to be invested in CBC Radio-Canada, to be able to continue delivering on our mandate.
I got 1 minute, so I'm going to interject if you don't mind. The Heritage Minister asked for your advice about the qualities of a CBC director. And we know...
These have a what, sorry?
CBC director should have the qualities they should have. Education, of course, experience, knowledge. So can you tell me how many of your current directors would be ideal candidates right now, according to the note you sent over to the minister?
you do understand that I'm not going to comment on the quality of my directors. We have a board right now that has been working with us for a long time. I understand that the minister is putting together a process by which new directors will be added to our board. We look forward to these directors adding themselves to us because we now have a number of vacant seats, and it's important for the broadcaster to be able to do its job, to have an environment, a board of directors to be able to deliver on the mandate of
advice
Thank you,
to your
Mr.
current.
Waugh. Mr. Waugh, I think that's it. Thank you. And now we go to Ms. DeBusen.
I was really happy to hear that we were talking about hockey, and we talked about how there isn't the same hockey programming that there used to be. We were talking about men's hockey. So I wanted to flag that there's an opportunity out there. The Canadian Women's Hockey League, Saturday nights, they play. In fact, this Saturday, Brampton and Toronto will be playing. Go Furies. And I think that we should be talking a little bit more, because we're studying right now women in sports. So some of the evidence that we've been hearing in that is that one of the challenges faced by female athletes is that there's less media coverage for them. And because of that, there's less sponsorship, there's less financial support for women in sports. And I was looking at your inclusion and diversity plan, and as far as hiring women and having women at boardroom tables, CBC has been doing well. But the point of that is also that it gets reflected out. So I wanted to ask you about what are the opportunities to better reflect women in sports on the CBC?
So I'll answer that question just in terms of the Olympics, and then I will ask Heather to help me explain to you how the sports strategy has evolved, because in this current context, you know how much we're invested in the Olympics. And we're invested in the Olympics, allowing us, and not only allowing us, but ensuring that not only men's sports, but also women's sports are seen on a Saturday afternoon in the sports weekend, and the stuff that we do between the Olympic Games. And that will involve skiing, that will involve luge, it will involve all sorts of sports that women actually play, and that are in this window on Saturday afternoons. So sports strategy, Heather, perhaps?
Our sports strategy is very much to focus on amateur and elite performance sports. Women's hockey is something I'm a fan of. I'd love to see more women's hockey on. We do have contractual arrangements with Rogers for Saturday nights until June of 2019. So that would be the first opportunity we'd have a window to look at programming other kinds of either cultural or amateur sport on the network. But it's not. We're not feeling like that wouldn't be an interesting thing for us. Our sports folks are deeply interested in all of our professional and amateur sports that are not in that category of 75 to 100 to $1 billion kind of rights fees. It's impossible to recoup your investment on those.
And there are all sorts of other ways for us to bring this to Canadians. We can stream, television is one only of the windows available for women's sports.
I'm sorry, it's just because I'm running out of time, and I want to get... So one of the things we're also looking for is more voices about women in media reporting on sports, and the role. And actually, CBC does have a number of women reporting on sports, which is wonderful. And so Radio-Canada certainly does. I believe you have Marie-Josée Turcotte, Chantal Madrabi. So you have women who are doing very well. And I was wondering, perhaps you could suggest to us people who could come before our committee to give the perspective of women who are reporting on sports about that that piece of what is the women's experience in reporting on sports, because that is not a traditional field in the same way for women.
Thank you. Whoever will answer this, can you do it very quickly, because we're really over on this particular question.
Sure, we'd be happy to make suggestions. There are a number of, as you know, national federations and provincial federations who actually have a number of athletes, a number of spokespeople. They are actually in this on a daily basis. I think that's where you should go first.
Thank you very much. Now we go to Mr. Maguire for 3 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I was asking earlier about competition in some of the industries, and just to go back to that, there's other mediums have come before us in this process as well, and indicated that the CBC was one of their biggest competitors, and a reason for them not expanding, that sort of thing, because you're funded. I believe it's the notes are 7,200 and some employees. 66% of the budget is a parliamentary appropriation, so you're getting about $1 billion a year out of the $1.5 billion in revenues, the federal government, and they felt that that was inappropriate, I guess, from their perspective. As far as competition goes, it's very difficult for them to I guess they felt, do their job of getting the news out there that they wanted to. Because they're surviving on advertising, where I guess yours here is, from the notes we have, is 16% advertising revenues. I noted that there's, and I'd just like you to comment on that, and as well, there's 9% of your revenues from subscriber fees for specialty services and 9% from other incomes. Can you just describe a little bit what the specialty services would be, and also then what other, because 9% seems to be a fairly large number of other income?
So sub-revenues are easy to identify. That is the price that you pay to your cable provider to get RDI or CBC News Network mainly. We have we have 3 or 4 other specialty channels, Doc Channel in French, RTV, Explora. So those specialty channels you have to pay for, because I'm sure you know that you don't pay for the CBC feed that the cable provider delivers to you, nor do you pay for the Radio-Canada in the same way that you don't pay for CTV or TVA and the other conventional broadcasters, which is an issue in itself. But I'm sure that in the 2 minutes that I don't have time to go into this really important subject matter, which would be value for signal. But we'll stop right there. And the other, the question was in the other we have all sorts of rent dollars that we create by our own activities, whether it is in the Toronto Broadcast Centre, where we've actually leased a number of square feet. What we're trying to do is everywhere we look at within the assets that we are given, we try to make them as efficient and as monetizable, so that all these dollars go back into creating Canadian content.
I do have one question, because on October the 6th, I was talking about advertising revenues. You're on digital, you're on TV, and then Ms. Helen Kennedy, who was the Director General of Broadcasting and Digital Communications with Heritage, I asked her about Radio-Canada, about advertising there. You've done the 2 platforms, but you haven't done the 3rd platform, which is radio. And I see here the quote, "Oh no, not radio. We don't want ads on radio." But will there ever, the reason no ads are on radio, because one time they were, and if your revenues are down everywhere else, why wouldn't you look for revenue from radio?
The CBC sound, the Radio-Canada sound, the première chaîne and of our radio network, Radio 1. There is no way in the world that we want to mess with that. This is particular to us. It's important. Canadians want it this way. There's no intention whatsoever of linking ads to those 2 radio networks.
Radio listening around the world is down. We are up.
So is television down.
We're up.
We're up. That's the message.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to Mr. Nandal and Mr. Breton, who are going to share their time, I gather.
Merci beaucoup.
Mr. Nandal, you starting first, Mr. Breton?
Oui, on va voir, peut-être qu'on va partager si
Sure, we'll see. We'll see if we have time to share the time. We briefly talked about the job cutbacks, which had been announced in 2014, I believe, following the 2020 strategic plan. Since then, of course, investment has been announced on the part of our government. I am particularly interested in the corporation attracting new blood, young people, university students, and others who are interested in this field. I know that for Mr. Lalonde, it was your first job, and I know that a lot of young people want to work for CBC, Radio-Canada. There are a lot of brilliant, competent young people with incredible skills who could be great assets to CBC, Radio-Canada, and fit into everything you're doing right now. So where are you at when it comes to hiring these young people in the next few years? Mr. Breton, when we announced this plan, we immediately talked about how important it is for us to attract the right technical skills, the right delivery skills, and content skills. Now, these skills are found in our young reporters, and we want them. There are 300 positions which will be created under the 2020 plan. 150 positions have already been filled. We're constantly on the lookout. There are 1,200 or 1,300 people who have undergone training within the corporation to acquire more skills. We've also trained about 600 people in managerial skills. So it's an issue that's top of mind for us, and perhaps my colleague can tell us more about the young Aboriginals we have just hired. Let me tackle this from a different angle. Radio-Canada, and I believe at CBC as well, reinvesting with the funds we've received has made us an attractive place for young people. Young people want to work for Radio-Canada and CBC. They want to work in digital, in radio, in television, in any form of expression. That's really encouraging. And even in young Indigenous Canadians, it's the first time that Radio-Canada has attracted 4 young Aboriginal people in 4 different stations for 1 year. These are paid internships. So there is a movement afoot, and it's really stimulating. If you listen to the radio anywhere in Canada, you'll hear these new voices of young people, new young journalists, and this movement is well underway. And we are definitely going to make sure that we will stay with our momentum, and we will offer as many opportunities as we can to these young people. I'm very proud to be part of this.
I know you're good at doing that. Go ahead.
1 minute. Écoute, je vais retourner à Saint-Boniface.
I would just like to go back to Saint-Boniface. Radio-Canada CBC is doing an outstanding job in reflecting us in our local events. But at the end of the day, 4 hours of broadcasting per day have been cut. So how can you assure the people in Saint-Boniface that their radio, their voice will be heard, will be there in future? All I can do is assure you that radio, television, and digital in Manitoba and Western Canada will keep on improving. We are going to, as I said before, when I talked about information and news, we are in the coming months going to launch all of our initiatives to ensure that we are providing different kinds of programs that will better reflect social and cultural interests. We are going to be even more present at festivals, music festivals, which encourage young talent, and that dynamic movement is going to be more present than ever.
Mr. Manantel.
Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's no doubt that Radio-Canada CBC has to be the #1 champion for the new universe of telecommunications. I am the first person to support you in your mandate. We also expect transparency because you are the broadcaster of Canadians and Canadian taxpayers. And to follow up on what my colleague said, all of the board members' information is here. It's made public, but there are 2 vacant positions on the board, and even the report card, if you will, of Mr. Lacroix is available, but partly redacted. We understand that it's for business reasons, and you make choices for all Canadians, and those choices are strategic, and we could not have the same, we wouldn't have the same director for the head of, same document for the head of Global or CTV. So this transparency is important, and we need to have a conversation within the framework of the minister's consultation, but I am afraid that these discussions will not take place after all because Rogers and Bell and other players have stated that they're not going to stick out their necks, which is unfortunate because we need to have a certain conversation. Ms. Conway, you were saying that you are collaborating with Netflix. Well, we'd like to know more about that. Are you going to award Netflix a license to broadcast whatever production you're working on outside of the country after the live TV run? And that is especially true for children's programming. So my constant concern is this. This is the Netflix portal for children's programming. And in Canada, we're just not there. So, Ms. Conway, do you believe that there is a way to make collaboration with Netflix a priority when it comes to children's programming?
Programming, as you know, is there are so many channels that are dedicated to cartoons, the Teletoons,
Mais si je peux me permettre, avec entre 5...
If I may, between 5 and 10 million subscribers to Netflix, they're the biggest game in town.
I'm just talking about when you're commissioning and developing. We don't produce most of our content in-house anymore, so most of it is commissioned from independents. Some of our children's is, some of our interstitial children's is. We would absolutely be open to partnering with Netflix. We're open to partnering with lots of different folks to create great content. We do have a very specific focus in our children's programming of the kind of under 6 crowd. We don't generally go for the stuff that's competing with the Teletoons and those kinds of...
Thank you, Ms. Conway. Thank you. Now, I want to thank CBC for coming. It was a long session. You sat there for 2 hours and answered questions, which is good. It's really what we wanted of you. I have a couple of questions as a chair that I usually kind of don't ask questions, but I really do want to ask this. Coming up to 150, Canada 150, since between 1952 and 1992, CBC has a huge amount of archival content, of shows that you have done over that period of time. Is it possible for you to put that treasure chest of archival content out there online so that Canadians can see it and remember the journey? I can give you one example, for instance. It's a West Coast production, you know, Molly's Reach, it's back to, you know, Beachcomber. So there are lots of things that you have in your archival content that could benefit Canadians to go back on and look at them. Have you any plan in doing that? That's the first question. The second question is diversity. We heard a question about diversity. You do, I mean, Kim's Convenience, I mean, your little mosque on the prairie, you have gone into diversity. But I think that there is room to do that more, and there's room to look at the LGBTQ diverse populations to tell stories about them. So I wonder if you have a plan to become a little more diverse in terms of representing Canadians.
Heather, you want to go with the archival material? I'll ask Louis to answer that question too, and then we'll go back to diversity.
I think for the archival material, the answer is, unfortunately, it depends. We don't actually own the rights to all of the archival material. We generally secure rights if it's CMF funded for 6 or 7 years, and that's all the rights we have. So for a show like Kids in the Hall, we would have to actually re-buy the rights to air that or show that to people on our digital platforms. So it depends.
Board does this. So is it possible for you to get that negotiation going with independents? Because it's great Canadian content.
We do when we feel that it will find an audience. We do that. So we have reissued Kids in the Hall on our comedy portal, for example. So.
Yes.
Louis?
Diversity?
Or archives first?
Archives.
Les archives?
Archives.
Archives,
Oui, les archives, ben, c'est extrêmement important.
Archives, they're very important. I think somebody already said this. A great part of the programming, well, we don't own the rights, so we can't broadcast those programs at will. We would have to pay a fee. But we are the owners of many other types of programming, drama, variety, everything before 1985. And then there are documentaries, news programs. All I can tell you is that over the years, in fact, we have a plan to digitize our archives. Second, for radio and television, we have primetime programs which are based on sometimes archival footage. And so we can use those archives to relive great moments and to see them through a modern lens. But there is a legal issue when it comes to major productions. However, we'll get there probably one day.
Just a quick answer, because we're running out of time, on the diversity, i.e. more diversity, because the face of Canada has changed remarkably, and also the LGBTQ diverse stories that you might want to tell.
I am lesbian, so I'm always a supporter of more LGBTQ and transgender stories, and we're not shying away from that. I think increasingly we want to see characters in our shows where it's not the most important thing about them. It's just a part of everybody's daily life, the same way that we want to see diversity reflected. So now we look and say, is there a reason that everybody on this show has to be able-bodied? Is there a reason that every character on this show is white? If there's no rationale for it, we say to producers, go and find a diverse representation. We're also trying to do it on our services. If you look at our last hires for the last 6 to 12 months in radio, Rosanna Deerchild, Pia Chattopadhyay, Duncan McHugh running Cross Country Checkup, Candy Palmater, Raina on Radio 2, who's replaced Tom Power in the mornings. Every one of them is diverse. So it's something we are seized with. It's something we care deeply about. It's something that, frankly, one of our biggest priorities is also to reflect it internally in our staffing, because that's how it becomes part of the fabric, yes. Right? And when you've been cutting people, it's very, very difficult to do that. You have to be in a hiring mode to be able to do that.
Thank you very much. I think we have another meeting coming up, so I'm going to have to ask for this meeting to be adjourned. Yes, Mr. Van Loan. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.